the inscription. This changes everything. All our assumptions.
We must hide this. Nobody must see this.
They'll discover the rest of the evidence. Why lie?
We keep this hidden, or we lose everything.
Whenever you hear hidden, people run to it. Why? Even on YouTube, videos with hidden or lost knowledge get far more views than videos that plainly talk about truth. Why? Yes, it appears humanity is drawn to things hidden, and books are no different. What if the most dangerous book in history wasn't destroyed? What if it simply disappeared? For thousands of years, humanity has been fascinated by forgotten books, lost gospels, hidden scrolls, ancient libraries, forbidden writings. Every generation seems convinced that somewhere, someone hid the real truth. But why? Why are we so drawn to the idea that history concealed something extraordinary? Today, you'll discover why lost books continue to captivate millions, what archaeology has actually uncovered beneath the sands of Egypt and the caves of the Dead Sea, why psychologists say forbidden knowledge feels more valuable than public truth, and why the greatest secret in history may never have been hidden at all. Because perhaps humanity has never been searching for missing books. Perhaps we have been searching for certainty. Part 1. Why every civilization leaves behind lost books. History is not a carefully organized library. It is a battlefield against time. Every civilization has lost books. Ancient Egypt preserved thousands of papyrus scrolls, yet historians estimate that only a fraction survive today. The famous Library of Alexandria, founded during the reign of Ptolemy I in the 3rd century BC, reportedly sought to collect every known book in the ancient world. Ancient writers such as Strabo, Plutarch, and Galen describe its extraordinary influence. Modern historians continue debating exactly how many scrolls it contained. Some ancient sources suggest hundreds of thousands. Others argue those figures were symbolic or exaggerated. What is certain is that enormous collections of literature have disappeared throughout history through war, fire, political upheaval, humidity, insects, neglect, and the simple decay of organic materials. The same is true across Mesopotamia. Thousands of cuneiform tablets remain buried beneath the soil of modern Iraq. New discoveries continue to reshape our understanding of ancient civilizations. The Roman Empire lost countless works. Greek tragedies vanished. Early philosophical writings disappeared. Historians estimate that only around 7 complete plays of Sophocles survive from more than 100 he is believed to have written. The overwhelming majority of ancient literature no longer exists, not because someone always tried to erase it, but because history is remarkably fragile. Papyrus decays, ink fades, empires collapse, libraries burn, civilizations disappear. This changes how we should think about lost books. Their existence is not unusual, their survival is. Yet one question remains. If lost books are completely normal, why do some lost books fascinate us far more than others? Part 2. Why forbidden knowledge feels more important. Imagine 2 books lying on a table. One is freely available. Anyone may read it. The other is locked inside a glass case. You are told, this one contains knowledge most people never discover. Which book immediately captures your attention? Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. Behavioral psychologist Robert Cialdini identified the scarcity principle, demonstrating that people naturally assign greater value to things perceived as rare, restricted, or difficult to obtain. The less accessible something becomes, the more important we assume it must be. Researchers such as George Loewenstein have also shown that curiosity increases whenever people become aware of an information gap. The mind instinctively wants to close that gap. Mystery creates psychological tension. We feel compelled to know what we believe others know. Now think about lost books. The moment someone says, This gospel was banned. This manuscript was hidden. This scroll contains forbidden truth. Our brains immediately elevate its significance. Not because we have examined the evidence, but because scarcity itself creates perceived value. This helps explain why phrases such as hidden knowledge, secret archives, suppressed history, forbidden books generate extraordinary curiosity. The fascination is deeply human. We instinctively believe that if something was difficult to find, it must also be profoundly important. But psychology raises a fascinating possibility. Perhaps our attraction to hidden knowledge tells us less about the books and more about ourselves. When archaeology reopened history. Then the 20th century changed everything. In 1945, near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi, local farmers uncovered a sealed jar containing 13 ancient codices. Inside were more than 50 texts. Many belonged to movements now known as Gnostic Christianity. Works such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Apocryphon of John suddenly became available to modern scholarship. Just 2 years later, in 1947, a Bedouin shepherd searching for a lost goat near Qumran, beside the Dead Sea, made another astonishing discovery. Hidden inside caves were thousands of manuscript fragments. Today we know them as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Dating from approximately the 3rd century BC to the 1st century AD, they include copies of nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible, alongside community rules, commentaries, hymns, and other Jewish writings. The discoveries transformed biblical scholarship, not because they disproved scripture, but because they provided manuscripts over 1,000 years older than many previously available Hebrew copies. Scholars could now compare texts separated by centuries. The results were remarkable. While minor spelling variations and scribal differences existed, as historians would expect in hand-copied manuscripts, the overall textual consistency of books such as Isaiah was extraordinary. The Great Isaiah Scroll, dating to around the 2nd century BC, demonstrated a remarkable continuity with the later Masoretic tradition. Yet another question emerged. If archaeology keeps discovering forgotten books, why were some embraced by Jewish and Christian communities, while others remained outside the biblical canon? That question takes us to the very heart of the investigation. Part 4. How do you recognize truth? Imagine archaeologists discover 2 ancient books. Both are old, both claim extraordinary things. Both contain spiritual ideas. Does age alone make either one true? History says no. Ancient historians evaluate documents using multiple questions. Who wrote it? When was it written? How close was the author to the events? Can independent sources confirm parts of its claims? Was it accepted by the community that first received it? Has the text remained stable through history? These are not religious questions, they are historical ones. The same principles historians use to study Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, or Plato are also applied to biblical documents. Age matters. But age is only one piece of evidence. A forged document written yesterday is obviously unreliable, but an ancient forgery remains a forgery. Likewise, an old legend does not become history simply because it survived. This changes the investigation completely. The question is no longer, is this book ancient? The question becomes, why did the earliest communities trust or reject it? Part 5. Why some books were accepted. Now we arrive at one of history's greatest misunderstandings. Many people imagine church leaders centuries later sitting around a table deciding which books people would be allowed to read. History tells a far more interesting story. Long before church councils formally recognized the New Testament, Christian communities were already reading certain writings publicly during worship. By the early 2nd century, figures such as Ignatius of Antioch, Polycarp, and later Justin Martyr quoted or referred to many of the books now found in the New Testament. Around AD 170, the Muratorian fragment, one of the earliest surviving canonical lists, already recognized many familiar books while discussing others that remained disputed. Church councils in Hippo, 393, and Carthage, 397, did not suddenly invent the canon. They largely recognized what had already become widely accepted across Christian communities. But what guided that recognition? Historians generally identify several consistent principles. Apostolic connection. Was the book written by an apostle or someone closely associated with one? Historical proximity. Did it originate during the apostolic age rather than generations later? Doctrinal consistency. Did it agree with the teachings already received from Christ and the apostles? Widespread acceptance. Was it recognized across geographically separated Christian communities? Notice something remarkable. These are not arbitrary rules. They are exactly the kinds of questions historians still ask today when evaluating ancient sources. The canon was not created by a vote. It emerged through recognition. Recognition of documents already regarded as uniquely authoritative. Part 6. Why some ancient books were left out. Now we reach the books that continue to generate fascination today. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Mary, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, the Shepherd of Hermas. Each occupies a different place in history, and this distinction matters enormously. The Book of Enoch, for example, was highly respected within parts of Second Temple Judaism and is even quoted in the Epistle of Jude. I suggest you watch my other video about the Book of Enoch. The Book of Jubilees was treasured by the Qumran community, responsible for preserving many of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Shepherd of Hermas was widely read by early Christians and even considered edifying by some church leaders, though not ultimately recognized as apostolic scripture. By contrast, many Gnostic writings discovered at Nag Hammadi were composed in the 2nd century or later, well after the lifetime of the apostles. Works such as the Gospel of Thomas contain sayings attributed to Jesus, but many scholars date the surviving text to the mid to late 2nd century, and its theological framework reflects ideas associated with later Gnostic movements rather than the earliest Christian communities. This is a crucial distinction. The issue was rarely, is this book interesting? Many of these writings are historically fascinating. The real question was, does this document preserve the apostolic witness to Jesus? That question changed everything. Some books offered valuable historical insight. Others reflected later theological developments. Some preserved authentic ancient traditions. Others combined history with philosophy, symbolism, or speculative cosmology. History is more nuanced than conspiracy theories often suggest. The early church did not reject books because they contained secrets. It asked whether those books faithfully represented the testimony entrusted to the apostles. And that brings us to the deepest question of all. If humanity has always searched for hidden knowledge, what kind of truth would God choose to reveal? Part 7. Why do we believe God would hide the truth? Now the investigation reaches its deepest question. If God created humanity, why would he hide the knowledge necessary to know him? Think about that. Throughout history, people have imagined salvation hidden inside. Secret scrolls, hidden libraries, private revelations, mystical codes, lost books, ancient symbols. Yet when we step back, a remarkable pattern appears. The greatest moments in biblical history were never hidden. Moses received the law before an entire nation. The prophets spoke publicly. Jesus taught on mountainsides, along roads, in synagogues, before crowds. The Apostle Paul preached in marketplaces, lecture halls, and public squares. Christianity did not begin inside secret chambers. It spread through open proclamation. Even when believers were persecuted, their message remained public. This is one of history's most overlooked contrasts. Many ancient mystery religions restricted knowledge to initiates. The gospel consistently moved in the opposite direction. Not inward, outward. Not concealment, revelation. Perhaps this tells us something profound about God's character. Truth was never designed to belong to an elite few. It was always intended to become good news for everyone. Part 8. The human condition. History keeps repeating. At this point, a remarkable pattern emerges. Ancient Egypt searched, Babylon searched, Greece searched, Rome searched, the Gnostics searched, the medieval mystics searched, the Enlightenment searched. Modern spirituality continues searching. Different civilizations, different philosophies, different books. One recurring human condition. We keep believing that somewhere, someone possesses the missing piece. Psychologists sometimes call this the elsewhere effect, the tendency to believe fulfillment exists somewhere just beyond our current reach. Another teacher, another book, another revelation, another system, another secret. It explains why every generation believes it stands one discovery away from complete understanding. Yet history repeatedly tells a different story. Knowledge increases, technology advances, libraries expand, information multiplies. Still, humanity asks, who am I? Why am I here? Why do guilt, suffering, and death remain? Perhaps our greatest problem has never been ignorance. Perhaps it has been separation. Not separation from information, but separation from the one who gives information its meaning. Because knowledge explains many things. It cannot tell us why love matters, why justice matters, why forgiveness changes lives, why beauty moves us, or why every human heart longs for something beyond itself. Part 9. The knowledge we were really searching for. Now the entire investigation comes together. Perhaps humanity has misunderstood the purpose of knowledge itself. Throughout history, we have treated knowledge as the destination. The Bible treats knowledge as a signpost. Think about Scripture's opening chapters. The first pages do not begin with hidden information. They begin with relationship. God walks with humanity. Conversation comes before commandments. Presence comes before instruction. Knowledge was never intended to replace relationship. It was meant to deepen it. That pattern continues throughout the Bible. Israel receives the law, not to discover God, but because God had already revealed himself. The prophets call people back, not to hidden wisdom, but to forgotten relationship. Jesus does not arrive saying, I have secret information. He says, follow me. That difference changes everything. One path asks you to master ideas, the other invites you into transformation. Perhaps this explains why Jesus never promised his followers hidden knowledge reserved for an elite few. Instead, he promised something greater. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Notice what he did not say. He did not claim merely to possess truth. He identified himself as truth. The destination was never another book, it was a person. Part 10. The greatest secret was never hidden. Perhaps history has been asking the wrong question. Not, what book are we still missing? But, what kind of God would reveal himself? If God desired control, hidden knowledge would make perfect sense. Only the initiated could approach him. Only the enlightened could understand him. Only the elite could belong. But the biblical story moves in the opposite direction. Again and again, God speaks, calls, reveals, invites. The greatest truths in Scripture were not locked inside forgotten libraries. They were proclaimed by shepherds, prophets, fishermen, tent makers, ordinary people carrying an extraordinary message. This does not mean ancient lost books have no value. Many remain priceless historical treasures. They help scholars understand Jewish history, early Christianity, ancient philosophy, the world in which the Bible emerged. They deserve careful study. But history also teaches us something equally important. Historical importance is not the same as divine authority. Age is not authority. Mystery is not authority. Popularity is not authority. Only truth deserves authority. And truth does not become true because it was hidden. It becomes true because it corresponds to reality. Perhaps that is why the gospel spread across the ancient world with such extraordinary power. Not because it offered another secret, but because it announced that the greatest truth in history had stepped into history itself. Not as another scroll, not as another mystery, but as a person. For thousands of years, humanity has searched through libraries, deserts, ruins, caves, and forgotten manuscripts. And every discovery has taught us something valuable about our past. But perhaps the greatest discovery was never waiting beneath the sand. Perhaps it was waiting in plain sight all along. Because the greatest secret in history was never hidden inside a lost book. It was hidden inside the human heart. Our endless search for forgotten knowledge has always pointed toward a deeper hunger. The desire to know the one from whom all truth begins. Perhaps that is why history never stopped searching. And perhaps that is why the greatest revelation was never another manuscript. It was the moment truth became flesh and dwelt among us.